What is up? Welcome to the Couple on Fire podcast. On today's episode, we're going to talk all about money and marriage, and that's coming up right now. Thank you so much for joining us on the Couple on Fire podcast. This podcast is for couples, for marriages, and for families within the Christian community. We exist to help break the stigma that happens within the Christian community. We're talking about divorce, we're talking about addiction, and we're talking about so much more. We believe that all this is possible in this life strictly based on the power of Jesus Christ and his ability to restore us fully. Let's dive in. What is up? What is up? What is up? Welcome to today's show. Hey, if you are brand new, you've never been here before, my name is Josh. This is my beautiful wife, Christy, and we are the hosts of this here podcast. We like to talk about all things marriage, family, and what we like to say is we want to help you take your faith, family, and future to the next level. Today, we're going to talk all about money and marriage, but before we dive into that, what's on your mind, girl?
I don't have nothing.
Blank slate?
I wasn't ready.
Did you know we do this every week? I didn't know if you knew that.
I wasn't ready.
You usually aren't ready.
I wasn't.
And I'm never going to prepare you before either. So you have to, I want to see how many episodes we can go before you are ready.
I don't
No,
have
that's
I
it.
mean, my nieces spent the night this past weekend.
Yep.
And Josh and I are far removed from smaller children.
Little children's.
13 and 7 they are. I mean, there's a baby too.
Yeah.
But she doesn't spend the night. But the 13 and 7-year-old spent the night, and I mean, one night is good. One night is good.
Yeah, for people that don't have small children.
No.
One night's
We're
enough.
far removed from that.
We are.
Far removed.
We are. All right. So we have a couple things we want to mention before we dive in. We have a couple huge things coming up. Number one, we want to talk about Celebrate Your Marriage. If you're in Michigan or a surrounding state and you've never had an opportunity to go to Celebrate Your Marriage, which is with Jay and Laura LaFoon, it's on Mackinac Island. We want to encourage you to go to jayandlaura.com, sign up, get signed up. You know, it's funny. We've been kind of looking at the numbers of like how much does it actually cost. If you don't go during the time that Jay and Laura are there and you go to their conference, it literally would cost you twice as much just to stay
At the hotel.
like just the hotel alone.
Crazy.
So even if you go and your prime focus isn't even going to be just the conference alone, just being at the Grand Hotel, if you've never had an opportunity to do that, this is a great opportunity to go for a really big, huge discount. So I'm going to encourage you guys to do that. jayandlaura.com. Right now, seats are filling up fast. They only
May
have so
19th.
many rooms. Yes, it's May 19th. Thank you. They only have so many rooms available that they book off. So you guys want to make sure that you go. We will be there. Dr. Gary Thomas, which is an author of Sacred Love, I think is his book. I don't know. He's kind of a big deal. So
Josh and I will
we'll
be there though, and it's so much fun.
We will be there. And it was a lot of fun. And then we Celebrate Your Marriage at Sea. We get to be guest speakers at Jay and Laura Celebrate at Sea, which comes up, Celebrate Your Marriage at Sea, which comes up next January. And you can get signed up on their website as well.
So you have time to pay right now.
Right.
Okay.
It's a cruise. It's a Caribbean cruise. It's awesome. It's great. We've done it before, but we've never had an honor to be guest speakers on this, and we get to be. And so that's really awesome.
Yeah, we're super excited.
So if you have any questions about any of this stuff, you can always just DM us. It's probably the easiest thing to do. If you have any questions or anything like that, just let us know. We'd be happy to talk you through it. All right. With that, we're going to dive
because there's a special code. Like if
There
you
is,
sign up
yes.
for the Celebrate Your Marriage at Sea in January of 2025, I think it's Josh and Christy 25.
Yeah,
you
Josh
know,
and Christy
to get
25.
A discount code.
Yeah. A coupon code.
A coupon.
A coupon. All right. Money and marriage, right? So this is kind of a thing that I would say is relevant at no matter what season of life you're in with your marriage, right? It changes how money impacts your marriage at different levels, but it always impacts your marriage at any level. So we've talked about this only one other time in the last like 3.5 years of doing our podcast.
Yeah.
And this is something that's really important. We need to talk about this.
Yeah. We do.
So before,
because what do people fight about typically in marriage? To fight about in-laws, finances,
and intimacy,
sex, and kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
In blended families, it's kids too. Kids is a big one.
Kids is
Kids is
a big. All right. So we have a couple Bible verses though that we want to read through. You want to kick us off?
You read your Bible verse.
I will read my Bible verse. This is mine. Proverbs 21:5 says, "The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty," ooh, I can't see that through there.
Comes only to poverty.
Comes only to poverty. Thank you,
Probably
my
because
love.
of my shirt. Yeah. It is.
Oh, yeah, because that extra white. All right, why don't you read yours?
So Malachi 3:10, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be room enough to store it. I love that Bible verse.
There's power, though, in God's word, especially when it talks about how we're supposed to treat our wealth, right? Or lack of it a lot of times, right? But about the income that we have, about the money that we have. We need to be diligent with it. We need to make sure that we're making it an importance in the way that we manage that. And so today's episode really is kind of talking about that.
Yeah.
How can we squash some squirrels and quarrels within our relationship when it comes to money?
Yeah, and we'd like to hear what you guys do as well. So I don't think many marriages have it completely 100% figured out. And I think, like Josh says, it comes down to what season of your life that you're in too. So, if you have a lot of small kids and they're in sports, and you're having to spend a bunch of extra money on sports, I think it just changes per the season. Not many people have disposable income, I like to call it. Not anybody that's listening to our podcast anyway. So it seems like we need to constantly be looking.
That was me.
Oh, we need to constantly be looking for ways to get better and better and better, be more faithful and diligent with how we spend it, tithe like we should, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I put a link down if you're in our Facebook group, it's a private group. Okay. So I did put a link down inside the chat that if you want to chat with us, you just need to make sure that you click on that link first, because otherwise we won't know who you are. It hides your name. So that's a little workaround on that. All right. So we have 4 points we want to make today. Number 1 is, what about open communication?
So this is, it sometimes can turn into, I guess, arguments or debates per se, but I think, Josh and I have been together for 13 years and we definitely don't have it all figured out, but we have gotten more comfortable with having honest conversations about where our inadequacies individually are when it comes to the finances. So or budgeting or spending or whatever it is. So, and we are comfortable talking about where the strengths are, but typically everyone's comfortable with talking about each other's strengths. It's the weaknesses or the inadequacies that gets to become more hard. So I think that having the open communication, but continuing to have it and really understand where are you coming from as my spouse? Where am I coming from? Because the common goal typically is the same. Like, we don't want to be living out on the street, homeless or filing bankruptcy, things like that. Our goal is the same. So if you have to keep reminding each other of that. But we've had the same conversation a lot when it comes to finances over and over and over, it seems like. And we just keep trying new ways maybe to approach it. So that's
Yeah, and I think with open communication, you have to really be careful that it doesn't turn into finger pointing, right? Yeah. And I think that's really, really important that we come with a soft heart, even though the conversation sometimes, most of the time, let's be honest, is just like running, on a hamster wheel at times. It does feel redundant, like we've had the same conversation. We keep having it over and over and over and over. Okay, but then we need to keep having the conversation, knowing that we're trying to seek a new result out of it, and maybe the conversation will change gradually. We know for a fact, if you just stop talking about it, things will get worse, right? Now, maybe you're talking about it and things aren't getting better, but they won't get better if you stop talking. We know that for sure, right? So we have to make sure that we're keeping open communication. So we're talking about things that do matter, right? About our financial goals, right? About the way that we each feel about money, not in a finger pointing way, but maybe we need to take responsibility. Maybe, I'm good at saving in these areas, but I'm really bad at spending in these areas, and then Christy's really good at saving in these areas, but really bad at spending in these areas. And unfortunately in our marriage, it seems like we're exactly the opposite, which is the worst. Where she likes to spend, I like to save, or I like to save, she likes to spend. And it's like this weird thing that we have, which we have to just keep talking through it and making sure that the idea is that we have healthy conversations, which are open and not finger pointing, which can be really hurtful in seize all conversations at that point.
Yeah, but I mean, we need to be careful about the finger pointing though too, because you and I have had to come to an agreement or maybe an unspoken understanding that when we come to each other with facts, sometimes someone will hide behind, well, that's finger pointing, when it's really not. Like a factual thing is, Josh, when he likes to frivolously spend, quote unquote, it's usually a higher dollar figure, but it's fewer and farther between.
Yeah.
Like once a year, twice a year type of thing. I frivolously, quote unquote, spend more frequently, I guess, within the year, but it's smaller dollar amounts, like $20 here, $30 here, $50, $100, $400, but not like $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. But if you total them all up, they probably are about the same. They equal out to be about the same. And in the past, if we would have approached each other about that, like if he would have came to me and said, well, this, I would have been like, you don't need to be finger pointing at me. It's not my fault type of thing. So coming to each other with factual things, don't hide behind, well, you're bringing up what I do and that's finger pointing. No, that's not. That is like, hey, this is factually where we are. We're in this together. This is both of our finances. This is both of our debt. This is both of our decisions. How are we when this is my thought process cycle? This is his thought process cycle. How are we going to come together and maybe try to halt or fix or tweak both of our thought process about things and come at it as a collaborative effort of how we can get better from both sides together?
Yeah, I think you said it well, though. I think it's different coming to facts about the other person and only about the other person in a conversation instead of saying, look, I'm going to bring facts about me, about our situation, and about you. And I think that's a much healthier way to do it.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't about hurting feelings, right?
No.
And I understand feelings can get hurt. It's real easy to get feel like you're always saying it's me. It's always me. I'm the one, right? And so it's easy to kind of play that victim role. So when we come to a conversation in our relationship and being open about it, it's like, okay, I'm coming to you. I'm saying, this is what you're doing right now. This is the way that I do it or have done it. And we need to, how are we going to work and move forward from this?
Yeah.
And I think that's healthy. I think that's really healthy because you should be able to have these types of conversations, which are hard in your marriage about money.
Mm-hmm.
And most people don't. There's a lot of money hiding that happens. I grew up with that. That's dangerous, And so it's real easy to be able to hide or find ways to just do what you want to do. So you have to feel the pressure of it, but that's also not taking responsibility either for what you got going on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Open communication. That's that one. Number 2. Joint budgeting.
So
this
I think
one's hard, actually.
It is, but I think all the points that we're going to make though too, the foundational thing is open communication about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes money talks don't happen and joint budgeting talks don't happen and things like that until maybe tempers or feelings are high or it's a hot topic. And then all of a sudden, one of the people in the marriage wants to all of a sudden bring it all out to the surface. So I do think when it comes to joint budgeting, it stems back to communication, but I think regularly scheduled times that you guys are intentionally going to sit down and say, hey, let's do the budget together. And what money is coming in, what's our funds coming in, what's our funds going out. And we're going to have this conversation bi-weekly or monthly or weekly, whatever works for your marriage. If you get paid weekly, maybe you want to have it once a week. If you get paid bi-monthly, maybe you want to do it bi-monthly. But you guys sit down and have time set aside so that you're both seeing where all of the funds are coming and going in. And it relieves some of that pressure for if somebody starts feeling like our budget is going to crap, right? And by budget, I mean like we have more money going out than coming in. And that's not really a budget, right? That's just monitoring the funds going in and out, which from my aspect in our marriage, this is something recently that we just started talking about. That's been our budgeting, right? Is the budget book. We get paid this amount of money. These are the bills that we have to pay out of this check. This is how much we have left to the next check. And then when that comes, these are the bills we have to pay out of this check. So it's basically just watching. And then, kind of saying, hey, we don't have the funds in the budget to, take the kids out to dinner 3, 4, or 5 times this week because it's $200 every time we take the whole family out to dinner. But rather sitting down and talking, which we just brought up today, like, hey, maybe we need to talk about actually an actual plan, which we've known. Okay. We've seen stuff like this before of how much money should be spent on eating out this month? What's our budget going to be for Amazon purchases this month? What's our budget going to be for, besides the normal bills that we pay? What are we going to be setting aside as a budget? So we know if we want to take the kids out to dinner and it's $200 a month, we can go once a month. Right. And that's what we're going to do and stick to. So that's the type of conversations that I think you need to sit down as a part, as a marriage and have some joint budgeting together.
Yeah, let's be honest, right? Like when we talk about budgeting, we talk about usually one person in the relationship has like the budget book, right? They're the budgeter, right? They're the one that does all the, and then the other person usually is the person that just kind of rides on the side, but it shouldn't be that way. It should not be that way. You should always be part of the conversation. I love what Christy's saying. Like you have to be part of being part of. Christy's always told me before, she's like, I'm not saying you need to fix anything within the budget book right now. I just need to share it with you. So you're sharing the burden with me, what's going on. So you're in the know. And it relieves like some type of weight and pressure off of her when we do that, because she is the budget book person. Right. And so when she says, hey, this is how much money we have, I'm like, okay, that's how much money we have. Then that's the budget. Right. And that's not the point. The point isn't that. The point is to sit down, let's talk through it, let's work through it, let's all be in the know, and then we can make decisions together on how we're going to budget things moving forward. Like you mentioned, are we going to say there's going to be $200? Maybe I don't want to spend $200 on my kids eating every month, okay? Maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe she does, maybe I don't. But these are the things that never get talked about, and it just ends up happening, and then later someone comes back and says, well, we don't have any money left. Well, I didn't know that. Well, I tried to tell you that, and then we end up in that conversation.
Which we used to be in that cycle a few years ago. I would be like, hey, we're really tight on money. And then that was it. He would still, like, if he wanted to go to VG's, like he'd decide, even though we had groceries at home, he would decide, hey, I want to make a roast tonight. So he'd go to VG's, and not that he's frivolously spending it, right? He's spending $30. And then I'm looking in the bank account and I'm just like, what'd you go to VG's for today?
Another $30.
You know?
$30 a day.
And I'm just like, I just told you we're tight on money. And but it's like, we don't do that in marriage, but in work we do. So it's like, if a employee is coming up to me saying, hey, this contract is, at risk because we have a lot of quality issues here, I'm like, oh, okay, well, put a plan together and then let me know. It's a lot different if the client calls me and says, I'm going to be canceling your contract. All of a sudden, the fire is a lot more important. Because I'm the one that's getting talked to about it by the direct source. It's no different in our marriages. Like if you're the only one managing the money and doing the budget, and you're just casually like, hey, we're tight. Hey, we're this. Hey, we're that. And they don't know. And you guys actually don't have a budget sat down. And I'm talking about like develop a plan for birthdays throughout the year. Like, okay, we have 10 nieces. So how, this is when their birthdays are. So each month we should set aside $20 a month in build up in preparation of these birthdays that are going to be coming up. I mean, you can really start getting a lot smarter with your finances. And
if you're intentional.
If you're intentional about it. And a lot of times, everybody would agree in any situation of your life, making decisions in a vacuum or in your own siloed way of thinking, you're missing ideas or ways that maybe you can make things better. Sitting with your spouse, who possibly or usually more than likely thinks about it differently than you, they could come up with okay, well, let's save here, or let's do this, or I don't want to spend $200. If we don't spend $200 on eating out a month, we cut that down to $100. We can take this other $100 and we can pack more into our 401k, which is what I'd much rather do, because it's going to cause us to be able to retire 5 years early. And
there you go.
A person like me wouldn't think about that.
Yeah, and I think the point of the joint budgeting is make sure you're doing it jointly.
Yeah, together.
Right? Because it's real easy for me to say, I'm budgeting. Yeah. I didn't spend any money today. I'm doing a great job on the budget. And Christy's like, I looked at my budget sheet and I know what we have, so I'm doing a good job. And it's like, that's not joint budgeting.
It isn't.
You have two people, mostly in marriage, you have two different types of money managers.
Usually.
You have to do, typically, right? So you have to do it together, right? Okay, so moving on. Number three. What about money autonomy? Money autonomy. I think this one's really important.
It is. And Josh and I actually this is one that we've been really good at. Like,
We have.
I don't even remember exactly what it is, but it hasn't ever caused any problems. So we're good. But I'm pretty sure ours was $50, I think. Was it $50 or $100? I don't
Probably
remember.
$50. I don't know. I don't spend more than $50 at a time.
I think it's $50. I think we'd agreed. I'm pretty sure it's $50 that we could, without, what's the word I'm looking for?
Checking,
it's a different word for checking in, but like, yeah,
collaborating, communicating.
That's not the word, but I can't think of it anyway. All of those work, so that we don't have to confer or whatever, defer to our spouse. Like if we wanted to spend $50 or less on something, we have the autonomy to do it. But if that's why he could go to VG's and spend $30, he thought, because it was less than $50. But if it's over that amount, like $100 or more, we would say, hey, we need to sit down. We need to just talk about it just to make sure that we're both on the same page. And a lot of that times that's just for accountability, but also to make sure that you guys are on the same page about stuff, because you could hurt yourselves. Like if you set the limit, at $500 and then that same day, each of you go out and spend $500, all of a sudden you're like, whoa.
We spent $1,000 today.
We spent $1,000 and I didn't realize you were going to do that. And I did that and all of these things.
Yeah, which is true. I mean, the idea is to make sure that you have some form of autonomy, which means that you don't feel like you're being babysat, right? Because that's not healthy either. You don't want to feel like you're under lock and key, like, here's your $5 for the week, spend it wisely, honey.
Right.
That's not the idea here. The idea is to have respect for each other, have respect for the budget, and have respect for how you guys are choosing to spend the money. Even now, something that I think we struggle with together is I never hardly ever purchase anything on Amazon myself. But what I do is I'll just dump things in the cart, right? And then when Christy's ready and she sees things in there and she's ready to buy them, she just buys everything in there, right? She doesn't even ask me. I'll just show up and I'll be like, oh, you got this? And she's like, well, it's in the cart, And
I'm like, you had it in the cart, which means you wanted it.
Yeah, right. And so that's not having a conversation though about those things. And it's just kind of become a thing, right? Which I need to be better at, which I've stopped putting things in the cart, right? I save for later, right? There's ways that we can work around these things to make sure that we're not, misusing this whole autonomy of using our money, but also not feeling like we're being treated like babies within our marriage either. My wife says, you can't spend the money on that, oh, but you can go get your nails done, and we get these attitudes about stuff, and that's unnecessary. That's what drives a wedge in marriage and then ends up doing something that I frown upon. I know Christy does too. Every marriage is different, but it ends up forcing couples end up having their own bank accounts is what ends up happening. And then that is a major separator, because I believe that God wants us to share all things within our marriage, and that causes us to have to work together. And these types of things, when there's not autonomy and money, it forces separation in us, right? Like, fine, I will just write you a check every month for the bills that I owe, though.
Right.
And we know many, many people that's done that over the years.
Yeah.
And the majority of those people are not together anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's just because of that one thing. I think that's just a wedge that it puts.
I think it's just a small compromise or a small thing to show that the people aren't united. I was scrolling TikTok the other day.
It's getting banned.
That's a whole nother podcast for in and of itself. But I saw this woman who had posted, my mother-in-law had girls, and she told me as her new daughter-in-law that she's always encouraged her girls to have their own bank accounts separate from their husbands. And then someone had stitched it. So someone else had come on after that, and she showed a picture of a family, there's like 10 photo frames, all smudged together. That's supposed to be like family collage thing. And there's like 3 pictures left in it, and all the other ones are blank. And the woman's like, yeah, do you see this? This is, the reason why this is half blank is because I had a husband who, I'm 43 years old, decided to up and leave me with 3 kids, and I was raised to have my own bank account, and I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't had my own bank account. But to me, it's having healthy communications about it going into it. It's promoting to have that separation. And I think it's a whole psychological thing that if you get with someone and just say, what works for you guys, we're saying this in our own, this isn't biblical. right? And this isn't, we're not saying that the Bible says this or anything else, but to me, if you're coming in, and Josh does agree with this as well, if we're coming into the marriage and we start saying, yeah, but I want this whole separate thing all to myself, and you want this whole separate thing all to myself, and you don't have access to it and I don't have access to it. Psychologically, that's just a small compromise, very small, in saying like, I'm not uniting with you at all. And I think there's an underlying thing there that should be discussed at that point.
Yeah, I look at it like rehab. I mean, I really honestly do. I look at it like rehab. Rehab, it's much easier to get sober in a rehab facility than it is to do it at home. And why? Because you don't have to trust yourself, right? You get to be locked up, kept, people are babysitting you, all these things. And it's the same thing in marriage. We separate our bank accounts. Like, I don't need to trust you with money. I have my own. And I think that removes a high level of intimacy.
Trust, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is we're in this together. We're jumping. We both only have one parachute and we have to share it. Like that's our life. Like I don't have a choice but to trust in you, which means I'm forced to have hard conversations. I'm forced to work through the hard things, especially through financial things. I'm forced to do this. And you realize over time how much stronger you get because of that. And not just in that one area. It bleeds into all areas of your relationship. Otherwise, you're just two ships passing at night. I don't need you. Why do I need to trust in that you're doing the right things with the money? I don't care, right? And I don't care about any of them things. And I think that's a big part of it. So that's my money autonomy thing. Because I'm passionate about that. I just think a lot of relationships anymore, especially new age stuff, is all like, we're coming into it separate, especially blended families. I've already been through it and I'm not going to entrust in it. Well, I mean, let's just live with one foot out all the time then. And I just think that's just damaging.
No, I agree with that too. And I know some people may disagree and are willing to die on a hill, but Josh and I are the ones that are married to each other. And we both have failed marriages and we both have now a successful marriage. And this is what works for us. And just offering possibly a different perspective. If you think that, having separate bank accounts is the right answer for you, just think about, is there something what's the reason? Is it for not the trust? Is it because I'm not letting you just walk away from me one day? Well, then that's not trust. Like, what's the foundational reasoning for it? And maybe try to deal with that root cause to build up some more trust and transparency, vulnerability in your relationship, because marriage is supposed to be the most special thing for a relationship on earth under God, any human relationship that you have above all else. So pouring into that and really digging up the deep rooted maybe issues and healing that together and working through that together is,
a healthy marriage built on trust. And I think something like that just doesn't require trust. So Carrie said, much needed conversation. I struggle with this so much because of my past and my spender mindset. I struggle with knowing what a healthy conversation about money looks like. I agree. Thanks for the insight.
We do too.
We get it.
Like we
get it.
We've started really talking about what our minds, because it comes down to your mindset. And do you have a scarcity mindset about it? And I did growing up. We had a scarcity mindset about it. I just remember hearing my mom talk about it all the time, that my stepdad only gave her, $70 a week or $75 a week for groceries or a month. I don't remember. It was something stupid. And that's all the money she got because she didn't work. So she got this amount of money. So she was constantly coupon cutting and everything else to try to get the most out of the allotted funds that she was able to get. But when you're constantly hearing about money, throughout, when you're growing up, kids hear you. So they hear, we don't have the money this month, or we don't have the money to take people out to dinner, or that go out to dinner as a family. They pick up on those things and hear those things. And so are they going to grow up with a scarcity mindset? Josh and I, when we first got together, blending a family, we were extremely poor. We were extremely without, but I think we did a pretty good job of not letting our kids know that. Like one time we had our power shut off, our consumers shut off, and we pulled the kitchen table out into the living room and lit candles, and we're telling the kids it was a camp out night and the power must have went off in the whole apartment complex that we lived in. until we could go. We went to a church that we didn't even go to the next day and asked for help, which is what they did. And they paid our consumers for us. So we were constantly like robbing Peter, paid to Paul, but we tried to keep that from our kids as much as possible. We volunteered to get some special funding, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really important to ensure that you keep that from your kids, and you know what kind of mindset that you have about it. Like if I have a scarcity mindset, I have to work on changing that now as an adult, because that makes all the difference. If you read money books, they all say it's the psychology of money, right? Like it's what your mindset is. And I know Josh grew up in a scarcity mindset too.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to because now it's kind of like we can get all the things. So why not get all the things, and which keeps us poor.
It doesn't keep us poor. It's not poor. Poor is never the word. It's always broke. We're not poor. People that live in India are poor. I mean, we're not poor. We're broke.
You know what I mean?
You can be broke from thing to thing to thing. And it's all about choices.
You're not being financially responsible.
Yes, correct. Money is leverage. Money is just leverage. That's all it ever should be. That's all it ever is. You're going to leverage, what are you going to use with that? We've talked about like, we're going to spend our money on experiences. Well, you know what? What we've realized is you can spend as much money as you want on experience. Okay. You can go all the way broke on experiences, okay, easily. So it's about being, and like you said, the psychology of money, looking at it and saying, okay, how do we want to leverage this? Are we wanting to put some of this away?
Yeah.
Like, and these are conversations, to be honest with you guys, that Chrissy and I are really starting to get a little more serious about than what we've ever have been.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It is what it is, right? We can't change the past. And so, but the idea is, let's change the conversation around it.
Yeah.
Right. Let's change the conversation.
And be praying about it. So I'm prayerfully constantly now talking to God and asking him for wisdom and discernment and to be more financially responsible with the money that he's given me. Like, am I being a good steward with the things that he has blessed me with in this world? Are we being a good steward with the things he is blessing us with in this world? Are we doing it financially responsibly with it in our decisions? And a lot of that I don't think was ever thought out. I know it wasn't for me. Like, would God be wanting me to spend this money right now if I have this, and this going on? Am I making the best decision possible? Is this something I would be proud of if Jesus was with me at this moment? And I just want to make sure I'm better about it. Why are you laughing?
It's just, I think that's such a thing that, like, it's real easy to beat ourselves up on that, right? I think we have to find balance in it. I think that's the hardest thing of this whole thing. Everybody that's listening to this right now, we can all sell our houses and go live in a trailer, and pull behind your car trailers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we could all make these choices, right? We could choose to do that. And I think the idea, like you said, is for us, how are we going to be responsible with it?
And how are we praying about it, though?
Yeah, are we praying
are
for
we
it to
bringing
be more
God
responsible
into our finances? Yeah. I really wasn't, not to the point that I should have been.
Yeah. God, lead me
yeah.
in the right decisions of what you want me to do and how you want me to be, because we always could get better, no matter what. And the funny thing is, it feels like that you always hear about people get a plentiful of money and then they turn back the other direction, right? Then they get worse with money, and it's like you're always in this ebbs and flows when it comes to financial decisions. It's like, okay. And that leads us right into our very last point, is all about how are you treating money, because you have to make sure that you're future planning. Are you future planning?
Yeah.
And we're not good at that.
No, which we're starting to really, like you said, talk about now as far as like investments and savings. And I view finances the same as I view your physical health. So yes, we can always always get better. There's always something that we could do better, even for our physical health. But foundationally, very overall, as a whole, are we making better decisions that are healthy decisions? So if we start looking at it more, our finances more like the health, like how healthy are we mentally with our finances?
Mm-hmm.
Are we making healthy decisions with them? Are we bringing God into it? Oh, yes, we can always get better, not to beat yourself up about it, but are you being healthy with it? Or are you not being healthy?
Yep.
And it's the same with your diet. So are you eating healthy and clean? Or are you primarily eating fast food, with it, which again goes to your finances if you're primarily eating fast food. But it's similar to that. I think that we are getting a lot more healthy mindset when it comes to our marriage and talking about our finances.
Yeah.
Let's say we were, really fat and overweight. with our finances before. And now I think we're getting to slim down, working out a little bit.
Yeah, we're working on it.
We're working on it. We're going in the right direction.
Right. We're eating out less with fast food.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it is important. It's future planning. There is a future. And I think, for a long time, Christian and I we had a lower income, and we always felt like there's no way you can save. There's no way we can save. That's impossible to save. And we're at the point now to where it's like, we can save, but the only way we're going to do that is if we start planning better and making better decisions, right? And we have to stop thinking, oh, no, I've never been able to have this, so let's have that. We're never able to do this, so let's do that. And it's like, no, it's okay. Christy said something, and she's really been saying it a lot probably the last year. If we could buckle our belts for 24 months, right, we could live with a lot more peace for a long time. We would be much better off if we're willing to do that. But we have to ask ourselves, is that something we're willing to do? And what does that actually look like, right? How does that look like? Because that's future planning at its best.
Yeah.
What's the tightening of the belt? What's that truly mean? And I know a lot of people talk about Dave Ramsey, and some people are bought into Dave Ramsey. Some people aren't. I understand, right? Not everybody's going to live out of a shoebox, right? We get all that, but there's balance in it, right? There's balance in it.
Well,
and are we planning for the future with that balance?
Yeah, and future planning, I take it back to like being healthy physically. So if you eat a cheeseburger today, if you go to McDonald's and you eat a Whopper or a Big Mac and stuff, and you're just like, I still feel fine,
right? Because I'm 25.
And then, no, even now. Oh. And then tomorrow you eat another one, you're like, I feel fine. I get on the scale. I don't see any extra weight. But if you keep doing that every single day, you may even still feel fine. But if you go get your blood work done, your cholesterol is going to be through the roof. You're going to be full of inflammation, like all of these things. There's things going on underneath the surface. But if you future plan with your physical health, you may not see the results right away, but you'll see it over time. And it's the same with finances. Like if you spend $20 today on Amazon, it's no big deal. We're not in the poorhouse. Spend $20 tomorrow, spend $20 next day.
Yeah.
But then the next thing you know, you're down the track. You have, 10 credit cards. You don't have any retirement. You have nothing in your savings. And it's like, okay, like these little, like eating out every single day, we have high cholesterol. We have high blood pressure. We're full of inflammation. We have to start making some, if that makes sense. Like I'm trying to use that as an analogy. Yeah. Like you have to make the smart decisions today for future planning down the road. And again, it goes back to the psychology of money.
It does. And this is where like everything kind of ties in together with this whole episode.
Communication.
It's about communication. It's about having joint budgeting. You guys having healthy conversations about your budget, having a budget. Most people don't even have a budget.
Correct.
I mean, I had someone tell us one time, they're like, you keep track of like $2.50 that you charge on your debit card? We're like, well, yeah. And they're like, well, I don't track any of it. Like, that's scary. Like, how do you know, like, something went wrong or didn't go wrong or you didn't
I know they're like, I just look at my bank account that tells me how much in it. I'm like, yeah, but do you remember every single bill that's going to come out the next day? Or
if it's correct or not correct
like,
or wrong or like whatever. So budgeting matters. Like these things do matter. And then having some form of autonomy, like, okay, well, we don't want to feel like we're walking around with handcuffs on all the time either. Like, it's okay, right? Like, she's talking about, like, have to have a healthy balance in all of this. Every once in a while, we got to be able to eat pizza, every once in a while, That doesn't mean pizza every day, though.
Right.
Doesn't mean
or even every week.
Or even every week, right. Depending on your goals, right? And I agree with that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, maybe you're in a position now to where you can spend a little more at certain times, but future planning is important.
I want to be like, frank though. So budgeting is actually taking your budget and saying like, okay, we're going to spend this amount. We're going to put this amount in savings, this amount every month. This amount is going to be for extracurricular activities, and we didn't budget to that degree. And that's the thing is that if you really get down to actually having plans and say, okay, we're going to budget, because as soon as we budgeted and all of our bills were gone out and we had extra money, there was no budget for that extra money. It was like, oh man, we have extra money. We've been wanting to get this new hair dryer for the last 2 years. I'm just going to spend $500 on that, and there is no plan for it. So you have to have plans. If you don't plan, then you fail.
It's gonna burn. It's gonna burn you.
Yeah.
It does burn you with money. It always
and
does.
that's what we're kind of trying to get at, is to just be smart with it. Like,
Yeah.
you can watch your money go in and out and all these things, but if you have a plan, like, okay, we're going to put this much in the savings, this much, so that way you are working towards your goals for your future planning.
Yeah, one of the biggest factors of divorce is money. It is.
Yeah.
It's mismanagement of money. It's miscommunication of money. And so why not get ahead of that and just have the hard conversations, stop pointing fingers, but talking facts, just like Christy said, and being able to talk it through and get on the same page and work this out. Because money and marriage are two things you can't, if you're married, you're going to money's in the middle of it, whether you like it or not. Okay. We don't live in a world where we're all independently wealthy, where we can just do what we want and lay wherever we want and spend what we want. Okay. That just isn't the way that it works. So are we being diligent with it? Are we doing what you're saying? Are we praying? Are we talking to God about it? Are we being responsible in a way that's honoring and glorifying to God and that's building into our marriage?
Mm-hmm.
Money and
Agreed.
marriage. All right. You have anything else?
Nope.
That's it.
I said it all. All
That's
the
it.
words.
So if you want to cash app us money, you're welcome. No, I'm just kidding. You can put. We'll put it. We'll make a category in our budget just for that. So anyway, money and marriage, right? So we ask you, what do you guys do right now currently that is working in your marriage when it comes to money? Maybe something that we didn't mention, something that is beneficial. Look, all you gotta do is put it in the comments, because people go back through and they do read these comments later. People go back and they watch the replay. And so it is super, super helpful. Let's encourage other people. If you are good at managing money and it's healthy in your marriage, please share your story, share your tips, share what works for you guys.
Amen.
Amen. All right. That's all we got. We'll see you guys next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, right here live.
Don't forget about Celebrate Your Marriage.
That's right. Go register right now.